So one of the things that I've reported on is that on the ground, some of these really vicious police officers, they are undercover guys. They're just basically plain clothes with very few markings, sometimes just an armband. One of the videos from this weekend is horrific. A yellow vester on the ground, arms behind their back, and then one of these undercover officer comes in and smashes his face on the ground 3 times and breaks his nose. It's a horrific video, but someone tipped me off to this, and I had never heard of this, but it's the European Gendarmerie Force. And of course, we see Gendarmerie on the tanks, the armored vehicles in France and Paris every weekend now. And I didn't realize this, but it's basically an EU militarized police force. And it's possible that these guys, some of them, if not many of them, are not even from France, as we've discussed in the past. And this might be a clue as to, where are these guys coming from? Why are they so extra brutal? Maybe they are being hauled in from around Europe and they just have no allegiance to the French people, and they're just trained attack dogs. And if you go on their Wikipedia page, it says that the EGF, which is the European Gendarmerie Force, is a European intervention force with a militarized police functions and specialization in crisis management, and it lists their allegiance to the European Union. So everybody can go and check that out. We have that up on the screen there now. That's an interesting little detail.
Tomorrow's news today.
All across the world, nationalist and populist groups are taking action. All across the world. They're not getting any support from the left. They're not getting any support from Soros because he wants authoritarianism. He wants clash of civilizations. He doesn't want people that have a culture and have a system. Our own Dan Lyman just got finished covering the incredible developments at Davos. When I say incredible, on Soros and China. But first, before we go to him and then your calls here in a moment, let's go ahead and go to that clip here where Max Kaiser talks about the yellow vest.
Cultural impact and what we're seeing culturally, and that is an important divide, he says, that we're really seeing now. And this, he points out that one illustration of this cultural divide is that most modern progressive social movements and protests are quickly endorsed by celebrities, actors, the media, and the intellectuals. But none of them approve of the Gilets jaunes. Their emergence has caused a kind of psychological shock to the cultural establishment. It is exactly the same shock that the British elites experienced with the Brexit vote and that they are still experiencing now, 3 years later. The shock by the cultural establishment to the cultural establishment is something that we've talked about here as well. Post-Trump, this Trump derangement syndrome is exactly the same symptom. Is that, when France elected Macron, remember in America, the media was like ecstatic, over the top, euphoric, and saying like, he's our guy, he's like Beto, he's like Obama, he's like sexy and sophisticated and says all the right things and signals his virtue. But the people are rising up against him because the elite don't understand at all, still, all this time, partly because they've had the comfort, the sweet, sweet comfort of a conspiracy theory that it's, some guy living thousands of miles away in the Kremlin who has some sort of mind control over everybody in their population. But the fact is, these people, there's a cultural divide in our own country.
No, that's not fully true. The establishment knows that it's populism all over the world and then just says it's the magic Kremlin. The only truth there is that Russia is not a perfect country, but it got out from under the globalists, at least partially. So it had gone rock bottom first. So it was one of the first big nations to partially get out of it. But now Italy and everywhere else, Germany's voted out Merkel's party. And France basically, something like 80% of people are against Macron. And it's happening everywhere else. I don't have to list all the places. People are sick of socialism, communism, corporate fascism. They want nationalism. They want prosperity. And they get it. They want it here. And so the establishment always tries to label their own domestic populations as terrorist. They always try to label them as the outsider when globalism is the outsider force pushing all of this. Our own Dan Lyman of EuropeWars.com just got done. He's covered the Yellow Vest demonstrations for 12, 13 weeks. He just got back from Davos. to give his view and his perspective. I'm not saying that Max Kaiser and his co-host are wrong. They're overall right. But if you expand on that, Dan, I think that clearly the establishment doesn't think it's the Russians that are behind this resistance to the New World Order. It's the fact the New World Order is a horribly authoritarian, out-of-control system where the elites don't pay taxes, but then they tell us we can't have a middle class, and that the dogma of the globalists being anti-family, pro-radical Islam, being anti-Western, that's why people are finally fighting it and getting out of their malaise, because it's a horrible system. What's your view on that?
It is a horrible system, and of course we can look to France to see what's going on, and we can also look to the extent that the authoritarians are willing to use force now at this point, as things continue on now for over 11 weeks of protests by the Yellow Vests in France, and the violence is definitely on the escalation. So it seems. I was there for week 10 last weekend before this one, and things started off pretty mellow, but then by the end of the day it was looking pretty ugly. But the thing that I find so amazing, these Yellow Vests, they're brave. They are a lot of them are very brave. You might call them crazy, some of them. You might say they have a few drinks in them, some of them for sure. But I mean, these people are out there knowing that they could be facing life-threatening injuries or life-changing injuries. And in some cases, some of them have died. Indeed. And we had one of the top Yellow Vests, kind of a guy that's been on TV to represent them. Seems like a decent fellow, a construction worker. He was out live streaming the protest in Paris at the Bastille, and he believes he was targeted, but he was shot in the eye with one of these flashballs, a 40-millimeter rubber bullet. And he says he was also hit with another projectile at the same time in the leg. And his attorney says that he will likely be handicapped for life and will lose the eye. So, I mean, the amount of barbarity on the ground, we've seen some pretty heinous stuff in Venezuela, but it's really not that far off here in France as well.
And then you see Macron and her being booed at their EU army announcement last week, something they denied. I mean, this is Hitler's literal dream happening of a European Union. He also envisioned the Olympics and drew the Olympic symbol. He envisioned the VW car, the people's car, Volkswagen, and drew the car and the symbol. He envisioned the European Union, its flag. He envisioned a European Union army that would then dominate and control the world. And we are literally now seeing it today respond to people trying to get out from under it by saying, we'll kill you if you try to leave.
Right. And, I just got a little tip, and I was just researching it before we came on, and I think you'll find this interesting. So one of the things that I've reported on is that on the ground, some of these really vicious police officers, they are undercover guys. They're just basically plain clothes with very few markings, sometimes just an armband. One of the videos from this weekend is horrific. A yellow vest are on the ground, arms behind their back, and one of these undercover officer comes in and smashes his face on the ground 3 times and breaks his nose. It's a horrific video, but someone tipped me off to this, and I had never heard of this, but it's the European Gendarmerie force. And of course, we see Gendarmerie on the tanks, the armored vehicles in France and Paris every weekend now. And I didn't realize this, but it's basically an EU militarized police force. And it's possible that these guys, some of them, if not many of them, are not even from France, as we've discussed in the past. And this might be a clue as to where are these guys coming from? Why are they so extra brutal? Maybe they are being hauled in from around Europe, and they just have no allegiance to the French people, and they're just trained attack dogs. And if you go on their Wikipedia page, it says that the EGF, which is the European Gendarmerie Force, is a European intervention force with a militarized police functions and specialization in crisis management, and it lists their allegiance to the European Union. So everybody can go and check that out. We have that up on the screen there now. That's an interesting little detail. And these are the things you start finding out as you start digging into this mess that is globalism fighting back against the populists on the ground in France.
Well, there's some of them right there, and you can see they're a multinational force. And if you look at those armored vehicles, that is the outside corporate EU invading the sovereign nation of France with the armored vehicles. So that is a foreign invasion force. And yes, this EU police force, Gendarmerie, is absolutely a foreign force engaging the French. It is only a matter of time. And it's going to be very sad when it happens, till people take those firearms away from them, with the butter knife brigades or the ball peen hammer brigade. It's only a matter of time until these paramilitary thugs start getting killed.
There was actually early on in the yellow vest protests, one of the rifles was taken out of a police vehicle. So there is precedent for that. If these yellow vests, if they get their hands on anything, more powerful than a cobblestone, they seem prepared at this point, some of them, that they'd be prepared to use it at least in self-defense. And with the amount of injuries they're sustaining, I do believe the injury count for both sides is over 3,000 now. I think that we could see some bad stuff in the future.
That's right. It's a fact. Venezuela is in a civil war against tyranny. France is in a civil war against tyranny. Liberty is rising. And the French resistance is about to kick into high gear as the corrupt EU state grinds to a halt. Owen Benjamin's going to be hosting the fourth hour, always informative, always entertaining, always spot on. Dan Lyman of EuropeWars.com heads up our Europe operations, does a fabulous job. He's here with us now. I apologize to callers. I believe you can't hear us. We're figuring out what it is. We're working on it. We'll have calls tomorrow. I want to get more calls on the show. Or it might just been those phones 2 in a row, but we're going to find out. Some testing. Now, Dan just got back from Davos, and I want to get his views on how important that was. But if you look at a Zero Hedge article that links through to the Davos page itself, China responds to George Soros. Statements by certain people which portray black and white distort facts are completely pointless and not worthy of any rebuttal, said the Chinese. All this year's now concluded World Economic Forum in Davos was mostly a dud and increasingly a joke in financial circles, with Deutsche Bank and Jim Reed going so far as admitting that we had a DB drinks reception, Deutsche Bank, for our clients last night. And one said to me that the 11 years of coming here for the best advice, we could trade in the opposite direction to the main theme of the conference over the next 12 months. There was one event that the boondoggling billionaires were eagerly anticipating, George Soros's annual remarks, because in the past, he signals who he's going after next. Just like 13 months ago, last time they had the Davos event, he said, I'm going after Facebook and others, which he did do a short on, and he was successful. It was more about muscling in and getting him to accept censorship. But it's what Soros said in the remarks that's really important. And as we reported previously, 1 year after he famously slammed Google and Facebook at Davos, calling for them a menace and monopolistic, and predicting it's only a matter of time before the global dominance of the U.S. IT monopolies is broken, this time Soros took aim at what he believes is an even greater adversary, one which even Donald Trump might agree with, China. Now listen to Soros. Sounds like Alex Jones now. But that's only because he sees which way things are going, that our war with China has been successful, that Trump's actually winning, that we're winning, so now he wants to jump on the bandwagon. China is not only the only authoritarian regime in the world, but it's the wealthiest, strongest, and technologically most advanced. Soros lashed out at Beijing while taking particular aim at China's president. This makes Xi Jinping the most dangerous opponent of open societies. He means of Soros's control. Soros is just as bad as Xi, if he could. Soros, who also warned that China's increasing use of AI and social credit systems to monitor its citizens, and in the U.S. is any different, could result in the most ruthless yet technologically advanced authoritarian regime in history, proposes a solution to eliminating what he sees as China's ills, crash China's economy and market, an approach Soros critics say he applies to every nation, which he finds disagreeable. So what do you make of this, Dan? You were there. Soros now openly coming out and saying crash their economy, they're an authoritarian threat. Well, Trump just wants them to make a better financial deal with us and stop threatening our ships and the rest of it. But Soros, he smells blood, in my view. What do you think?
It's very interesting. It does remind us all that there is a power struggle, even at the upper echelons of globalism. It's like with any alliance, like, let's say with the left, SJWs, eventually when they start accruing some power, then they're going to want it for themselves, and they're going to start breaking up and fighting over, what they think is rightfully theirs. So it is an interesting thing to see Soros having gone after big tech and now going after the Chinese. companies. So, I mean, I think it's positive for us in that it reminds us that it's not a monopoly at the top, and we have a choice in our destiny, so to speak, and to see that there are chinks in the armor that we can exploit when we see that they're not solidified at the very top. That's what it tells me.
I couldn't say it better than that. And again, they all want a technocracy. They all want world government. They all want vertical integration, but they're battling over the control. So that's one of their weak spots. That's why we have separation of powers in our government, to take competing groups and have them set against each other instead of consolidating control. That's when you've really got to worry. But notice this statement about the danger of the total technocracy with the social credit score, when it's Soros funding and literally honchoing with these big groups the rollout of the social score here in America, and it's been him pressuring Google and others to actually adopt this. So it's just amazing hypocrisy.
Right, and China is very powerful at this point. They have their own thing going on, and I would imagine that Soros has his own thing going on, and he doesn't want to cede too much to the Chinese, if anything at all, and probably feels a bit threatened. The things that are going on the ground in China, I mean, we start now. Thank goodness for social media, because there's things that kind of we can get a glimpse into what's going on there. I remember a couple months we did a story on the train. You're warned if you misbehave on the train, it will go against your social credit score. And I just saw recently that at some intersections now, they're posting the pictures of people and their family who are known to be jaywalkers to shame them in public and let everyone know that your social credit score will be lowered if you jaywalk. So, I mean, we need to pay attention to what's going on there, because if we think we're that far behind, you're crazy.
And again, they always start with something that sounds reasonable with a surveillance grid, but next, it's what you eat, it's who you talk to, it's what you do. Once you give into it, they can then use the stimuli to actually control you, like you're a remote control dog or bot of some type. That's what this is. They get you to comply to stuff that sounds reasonable, but again, they mean to walk you into something even more draconian. Speaking of countries where an elite get in control and then fight with each other over the resources, Venezuela, once the richest country in South America, is now a hellhole. Even CNN now admits thousands starve a week. Well, shouldn't we just have Maduro then move to New York? He could run and win by 80% of the vote and go to Congress. I mean, this is what Alexandria Cortez is pushing.
Right. I have a family member who's a bit on the normie side, but he's starting to wake up, and he just saw that the inflation in Venezuela is going through the roof and has started kind of paying attention to what's going on the ground there. And he asked, why would anyone want that in the United States? And I said, unfortunately, there are plenty of people in the United States, especially in our age group, in the millennials, the Gen X, that would gladly vote for the type of people that would usher that in. Whether they understand what they're doing or not. Many of them are as dumb, if not dumber, than Alexandria Ocasio or Cortez. And we can thank, of course, the school system and culture and just the incessant promotion of cultural Marxism, socialism, promoted as a cool thing. But anyone that wants to know where that road leads should look to Venezuela to see what's going on the ground there. If you value eating nice meals and taking showers and your vacations and Instagram and all that, you probably don't want what the socialists have in store for you.
And when things break down, anybody that's got anything better than you is the target. Anyone with a car is getting things thrown at them, including a cheap moped. Anybody with food is being attacked. The average Venezuelan has lost 28 pounds in the last year, and a carton of eggs is $200 USA. So there you go, another incredible example of that. Dan Lyman at EuropeWars.com. Again, incredible job, a lot of courage covering the yellow vest. We know you'll be reporting ongoing with the great work at Europe Wars. So everybody share those links. That URL is not as censored as Infowars.com, so it's easier to share it. EuropeWars.com. Thank you, Dan Lyman.
Thank you. God bless.
Truly amazing. In fact, I should have started the whole show with Venezuela and what it's like in Alexandria Cortez. But see, it took 15 years or so to take a rich country and redistribute all the wealth before it completely collapsed. And then they don't really ever come back. Argentina didn't come back. None of them do. It's a real shame. And they've got millions of people trying to leave. And when they question them, they go, oh, we hear there's more free stuff up north. We hear there's more free stuff, El Norte. Meanwhile, the country is incredibly rich with resources, the farmland, everything. But see, they told all the poor people, vote for Chavez and you'll get free stuff. And now all the free stuff's gone and everybody left and it's collapsing. And half the millennials say they want communism in polls. We're almost out of time. I'm going to get back into the next segment because I wanted to get into some other areas of Bill Maher and just what a scumbag he is. But then we have Owen Benjamin coming up. That's one of the best guest hosts we have. So look for that coming up in the fourth hour in the War Room. Owen Schroyer and others are going to be calling into his own show. We have some guest hosts there and a lot more today. Remember, only way we get the word out is you. Only way we stay afloat is you. I've been so focused on news and information, I barely even plug anymore. We won't be here in 6 months if I don't start plugging. I want to thank you all for your support. But, I mean, we've got the best supplements. We've got the best water filters. We've got the best air filters. We've got this incredible new product beyond any energy drink or pre-workout you've ever had. It's whole day use, slow burn, healthy energy with all the vitamins, minerals, and everything. It's Turbo Force. It is the ultimate of this energy drink next level type out there. It's simply amazing. Turbo Force, 33% off out of the gates, InfoWarsLife.com or 888-253-3139. Great job to the crew. We'll be back with the fourth hour. Ladies and gentlemen, the new year is here. And I personally in the new year am looking at all the great supplements and products at InfoWarsLife.com and saying, what do I need to take religiously that I'm forgetting to take, that lowers inflammation, that empowers all the cells in the body, that makes me healthier, better stamina, libido, energy? And it's these three babies. It's Body's Ultimate Turmeric Formula with 95% curcuminoid. Nobody else can top that. Top of the line in the nation. It's X3 that has all three of the good types of iodine together, including the deep earth crystal iodine. Because some people can't absorb that type, we put a little bit of the other two types and a tiny bit of vitamin C to stabilize it. And then Super Male and Super Female Vitality. Super Male Vitality's been our overall most successful product, neck and neck with Brain Force Plus. But because it's wildcrafted and it's a proprietary process, we weren't able to get it for long periods of time. And so I made the decision just to discontinue it and try to reformulate. But it's been very, very hard to do. So we're not discontinuing it because it's crap. We're discontinuing it because we can't get it. It may come back in the future, but right now we're just not able to bring it. It's our last run of it. Proprietary, amazing. It's at InfoWarsLife.com. InfoWarsStore.com is the umbrella site. Or call toll-free 888-253-3139. Body's Turmeric Formula. And it's supercharged with other key ingredients that supercharge it, bring it to the next level. And then, of course, it's the X3. It's our final run of X2. We've secured the deep earth iodine, but I thought to make a better one with all three types and the vitamin C. So get your X2, get your X3, all at InfoWarsStore.com or 888-253-3139. And again, have a great New Year as we fight the globalists and restore the republic and freedom to the planet. Thank you all.